So what you're looking at here are carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are, when you think of carbohydrates, you should be thinking sugar. Okay, so carbohydrates are inorganic molecules. These are carbon-based molecules that they have carbon, carbohydrates, water. Okay, so they link with water in the body, and they're great for fuel sources for the body. Okay, so they are organic molecules. They have monomers and polymers. Their monomers, excuse me, that are the subunits of organic compounds are called, so their monomers are called monosaccharides. And that is these guys. So glucose, fructose, and galactose. These are all monomers of carbohydrates or monosaccharides. These guys here are also monosaccharides. They're a little different. This is deoxyribose and this is ribose. The monosaccharides up here contain 6 carbons, and the ones down here contain 5 carbons. So this is called a pentose. And this is called a hexose because there's 6. So the points right here, these are all carbons. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is an oxygen, not a carbon. But these are just carbon molecules linked together with a bunch of hydrogens and oxygens hanging off of them. Okay. These monosaccharides, these 3 here that are part of our foods, okay, the things that you consume for fuel, these all have the same notation. So C6H12O6, they all have 6 carbons, all 3 of these. They all have 12 hydrogens, and they all have 6 oxygens. They're different because they're structured differently. Okay. Down here, again, these are pentose sugars. So these are also monosaccharides, but you're gonna see these, or we are going to see these in DNA and RNA. So not in like the foods we eat. So these food molecules, the monosaccharides here, up here, these hexose sugars, these can all be linked together in a certain way to form something called disaccharides. And that's what you're seeing over here. Di means 2. Disaccharides. I spelled this wrong over here. There you go. So these are disaccharides. So these are 2 monosaccharides linked together, and there's 3 flavors of these. So sucrose, one right here, this is glucose plus fructose. So a glucose linked to a fructose. They're linked together through dehydration synthesis. Okay, so they're linked together at this oxygen, and we're forming something called sucrose. Sucrose is table sugar. Okay, lactose, this is milk sugar. And that is galactose plus glucose. So glucose plus galactose. Again, linked here, dehydration synthesis links that together. And then there is maltose. So maltose is glucose plus a glucose linked here. Okay, so I need you to know the monosaccharides and the disaccharides. Make sure you know, you don't have to know the chemical, bonding here or whatever, but and know the exact structure, but you need to know that sucrose is glucose plus fructose, lactose is galactose plus glucose, and maltose is glucose plus glucose. That will become important later on, but you need to be familiar with it. So another thing that carbohydrates do is they also store energy. Okay, so they store glucose as a polysaccharide. Okay, so these are polymers or groups of simple sugars. And again, they're linked together through dehydration synthesis, and they're for storage. Now, in a plant, we call this starch. But humans have stored glucose as well, and it is called glycogen. And we store glucose as glycogen in the liver and in muscle tissue. So glycogen is just a bunch of glucoses linked together by dehydration synthesis, and they can be branched off too. We can link all kinds of crazy. So remember, these are glucoses. Glucose, that's what all those things are. So that is glycogen, that is stored sugar in the body. Okay, so these are very important molecules. And again, the carbon, the fact that they're organic, we can make these huge chains of these things because carbon is great for that. Keep in mind that carbon has 4 electrons in its outer shell. So it's always, always, always going to share. So it's always going to covalently bond with other things. And it especially covalently bonds with hydrogen. Okay, so again, carbohydrates, all this hydrogen here. There's a lot of water. Carbohydrates bind with water, okay? All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is going to be lipids or fats.